Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Lehigh County Authority Board of Director meeting. Today is Monday, October 13, 2025. The meeting has been held in the hybrid fashion, either in person or via Zoom meeting. Lisa, would you please the roll call for the Board of Director, please?
Roll call of the board: Amir Famili.
Here.
Jeff Morgan.
Here.
Ted Lyon.
Here.
Rosenfeld. Here. Kevin Baker. Kevin Baker, we'll get back to him. Sean Ziller.
Here.
Peter Dent.
Here.
Kevin Baker.
Here.
We have a full board of 7 members today.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. So the package for the meeting, a thick package was sent to everybody via mail. And there was also an email and posted on the website. If you have issue receiving those packages, please see Lisa. She would help you on that regard. Event agenda, Lisa, do we need any change of agenda or any need for the executive session?
There are no changes to the agenda today, and no executive session.
Okay, great, thank you. Linda, approval of the.
Actually, Jeff's gonna do it
Yeah,
because
okay,
I wasn't here.
that's correct. Yes, thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the September 22nd, 2025 board meeting.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay. Motion made by Jeff, second by Peter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any objection? No?
Abstention.
Yeah, the abstention, I'm sorry. Oh, you abstained because, correct, you were not here. So any public comment on the item which is not on the agenda?
I have no comment, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Going for the action item we have the first thing is the 2026 budget as a final review is the there's a white package that you have received. I believe you have a presentation on that.
We do have a presentation, in fact, a rather lengthy presentation, so we have a lot to go through. It is a little bit repetitive from prior presentations in terms of the numbers that haven't really moved a whole lot. But I think it's important to wrap it all together and the highlight what's new with this presentation is review of those rates for next year. So go ahead and get that. So Ed and I will do a tag team approach to this presentation as we usually do. I'll give some introductory comments, let him get into the numbers, and then I'll focus on the big piece. This is our 2026 budget proposal, and this is the 3rd presentation we've done on budget. So really we're focusing on any changes from prior presentations of the budget. There are just a couple of minor ones, and then focusing on the rates, as I mentioned. And then assuming we're kind of all on the same page, we'll ask for approval at the next meeting 2 weeks from now. And then we'll do a final rate adoption in November. So we have lots of chances to look at this along the way of almost 3 months. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the budget drivers because that was the focus of most of our discussion in September at both meetings. We do have a series of priorities that we had established for 2025. We're checking some boxes and getting a few of those done this year and adding some new things for next year, focused on regional leaderships and technology projects, facilities and security, affordability, P1, and then project management metrics, which we're getting close on, but we'll want to make sure we keep the spotlight on achieving that. Nothing has changed here in terms of the impact of those strategic initiatives. We have a few items, special studies and rate evaluations that will be built into are built into the operating budget. And then the capital budget includes some facility improvements and technology items along the lever program, part of our strategic initiatives. On personnel changes, we spent most of our time over the past couple meetings talking about personnel, and we attempted to manage the personnel changes in a thoughtful way. So looking at positions that we have held vacant for a period of time, repurposing a couple of those positions, doing some phased hiring throughout the year, prioritizing the must-do items related to our lead program. We do have some things we want to keep our eye on and be tracking the data on overtime. Make sure that we're achieving the efficiencies we set out to achieve, as well as looking at contractor pricing, because we're trying some new things with this, with this insourcing of some of our projects, and want to make sure we're keeping our pulse, keeping the pulse of what's going on in the contractor arena as well. So these are the positions we've been talking about. I sort of tried to summarize them all to show all the changes in one sheet. We have some changes that reflect needs that LCA has, or the staff have determined for business services like facilities and security, data analytics and accounting. And we determined that we can eliminate the previously vacant PA1 call technician position that we had budgeted last year. And then we have a number of positions that were added. We selected the kind of the best parts of the presentation. We heard from EMA about staffing and what we think makes sense for 2026. Includes some additional resources for our lead program, as well as our I&I program, and insourcing some of the field work while still kind of watching the overtime piece and the contractor piece to test this out. So total headcount change is plus 10 for 2026. And then the overall budget assumptions, we've reviewed these the last couple of meetings. The personnel increase is a big driver, changing by about 7.7%. The net or the total additional more strategic initiatives of $450,000. And then other inflationary, other expenses are increasing primarily by inflation. So, and we plugged in 2.7% of that. And then a lot of today's presentation will be hitting on these last items related to rates and how that impacts revenues. That was very quick summary of the major drivers for the budget, and now we'll get into some of the figures. Ed, do you want to go through these?
So I think at one of the board meetings a little while ago, we got into a discussion about what some of the ratios mean and how they're calculated. So this slide, I think, helps illustrate what's going on with some of the ratios. And I know I've mentioned operating ratio as we looked at some of the monthly reports over the years. And basically what you're trying to do is see if your operating revenue is covering your operating expenses. So theoretically, the goal would be if you got 10 million in revenue, that's covering 10 million of expenses, so that your ratio is 1 or hopefully even better than 1. And that includes depreciation because of strong desire to make sure that we're not losing sight of capital being part of the equation, just like a third-party business worries about replacement of capital. So putting depreciation in the calculation at least gives us that coverage on depreciation. Debt service coverage ratio, we talk about this one a lot. This is basically after you take net operating revenues, which would be the operating revenues minus operating expenses. You add in some of your other fees, such as tapping fees, other system connection charges, project development, developers revenues. So you get your total revenue pool and you say, once I subtract out operating expenses, I'm gonna be left with some money that I can now use for debt service. And our covenants basically say, on the suburban side, 1.10. On the city side, that is specifically stated at 1.20. So we've kind of went in the neighborhood of staying with the higher one as an internal target. And so anytime that we're doing better than 1.20, and quite frankly, all of the funds are within that realm, we're at least doing well with respect to what S&P would consider a very key measure.
Question. In the debt service coverage ratio, the operating expenses include depreciation. You do that ratio,
In debt service coverage ratio, you take depreciation out of the
you
picture.
take it out.
Yes, basically, you're talking about
Cash.
operating cash base.
Thank you.
Yes. Capital coverage ratio is after you pay the debt. So you're left with available for debt minus the debt services. Now theoretically, I've got X money available for capital coverage before you start to talk about borrowing, et cetera, and try to look at capital coverage ratio that's 50% or more. I mean, at the one point in time, we were close to 100% on suburban water not too long ago before we started to see $10 million worth of expenditures, but that's our internal target would be better than 50%. And this is a big one for me, also a big one for S&P as well, people that farms. This is basically if you take the unrestricted cash balances, that would be any cash balance out there that's not related to borrowing, any cash balance not related to required reserves per indentures, and say between operating cash and whatever unrestricted project money we have left, how many days operating expenses does that cover? And we try to keep a half a year, so 180 days on the books. For the most part, two funds do that. And we have one fund that isn't in that neighborhood right now.
Sorry.
No, that's right.
These metrics, are these pretty much used by other organizations like ours as markers for financials?
So other municipal,
Yeah.
basically, I keep referencing S&P. If you went to S&P, you would say that's what they look at for every authority, every government is, are they debt ridden at all? I mean, because some may not be. If they are they covering the debt service? And second thing is, at the end of the day, do they have enough money in case there's a rainy day or disaster? And at least you can recover from that. So yeah, and they're big ones, and we've gotten fairly decent rates over the years because our debt service coverage ratio is better than where we say we want it to be, and we've typically maintained 180 days plus. In some cases, a little bit more than 200 days. So it helps when you're out there and looking prettier than somebody else.
These numbers help you to get lower interest rate.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's one of the key benefits.
I really appreciate talking through these definitions and also putting in the package here and the definitions and putting that in these as well. Readability and clarity.
Yeah, these are the big ones. These are what I would call the most important ones. I would look at maybe 20, 25, 50 other ones that ring a bell for me, but these are the ones that show up in the market as the most important. And like I said, traditionally over the last number of years, done fairly well with that. So.
And just a quick question. So it's kind of interesting, the debt service coverage ratio, you would think would just be debt service plus a cushion, just from the definition, but it actually includes operating expenses. So that's interesting. That's good that you point that out.
Yes. Yeah.
I would not have thought that's.
Yeah, you're basically saying, I'm gonna take in X dollars of revenue, but I gotta pay some bills.
Right.
And so after you pay the bills, what do you got left? And how does that relate to what debt service really is? So if you're covering 1.2 or better, you got two things happening. Number one is you're making a lot of people that want to look at you happy. Number two is, well, after debt service, you're gonna have money available for capital.
These are important. There are some important differences among the different metrics because they impact or the results are different for each system based on how we're structured for rates or how we're structured for debt. And so we heard your question. Peter wanted to put this here as well as in the packet. And then as we go through the presentation, you'll see these pop up and we'll see the results, which will be pretty different for each system.
So this is a summary of where we are. I'm gonna lead in with, as Liesl had mentioned it, we really did not make any changes to operating revenues across the board or operating expenses across the board. I haven't changed the dollar of debt service across the board, so we're pretty solid with debt service coverage ratio that you're looking at there. And again, we saw the 1.20 number, we're at 2 or better. Where we did have some changes was in capital budget, and in particular, just looking at suburban water, that was a little bit higher the last time, and we're at 6140, and we'll have about $320,000 worth of, I'll call it unrestricted project balance. And I'm kind of going down the line now with suburban water. So at the end of the day, we should finish 2026 and we're budgeting about $7.3 million worth of operating cash. That will equate to 192 days of pure operating cash, not just unrestricted, pure operating cash days on hand, with $320,000 of project reserve balance and other reserves of 4.8. The total fund balance would be $12.4 million. And that compares to $14 million. And you can see that 1601 at the bottom is really what the net cash flow is as well. On suburban wastewater, and I'm kind of going down from the 6697500 is the capital that we have. Some of that's going to come from existing project reserves, funding from operations will be 798,000 rounded. We won't have a lot in project reserve balance, 55,000. So going down to total cash flow, we should have cash balance starting the year off with 873, build up by $2.5 million, gives some almost 800,000 capital. And we should have $2.6 million worth of operating cash balance, and that would be the one fund that I mentioned was going to be less than 180 days. And the total fund balance will be 10.3. The one nice thing out there just for a safeguard is there is $7.6 million worth of invested money that if we needed to get at, we could get at on a quick and liquid basis. So 10.3 million, and we're starting the year with 14.5. So you can see the cash flow is going to be 4.2 minus. City division, again, nice debt service coverage ratio. We should have about $3 million worth of unrestricted project money left. In terms of the way the city is going to fund the $50.7 million worth of capital, you're going to have about 30 million coming from current reserves, current revenue and operating reserves. You should have $15 million from existing projects reserve, and that was already borrowed money. And then $5.7 million of new borrowing, which is more particularly related to the Penvest loan that should take place in January of next year. So altogether, total cash flow, we should finish with an operating cash balance of $24.3 million. That's 310 days. Reserve balance is a 3+. Other reserves of $90.6 million. Yes, we have a lot of balances on reserve due to borrowing. And we should finish with a fund balance of almost 118 million, compared to going in with 134. And again, that $16 million reflects that we're using a lot of money out of already previously borrowed funds 2 years ago to actually fund what's going on this year.
Year-on-year comparison, our operating income revenue versus operating expense. Do you remember what was our number for?
Yeah, we have.
If you have it, okay.
Yeah, actually, nothing really changed. If you want to go to the next. We'll get into the changes. This is how we typically look at what we do on a monthly basis. So you can see Suburban Water is positive on an income basis. Suburban Wastewater is negative. City Division is almost 16 million. So altogether 15 million. Income, cash flows, again, 1.6, they're all negative. 1.6, we're using up reserves. 4.2, using up even more reserves, and 16.3 using already borrowed money. So minus 22 on the city side. You can see the debt coverage ratios were all good. And in total, we'll spend $63.5 million in total capital.
Ed, you've answered this before, and of course, I've forgotten the answer. I'll probably ask it again.
So, right.
$63 million we need to spend on capital expenditures. And we take some of that from reserves and we borrow some.
Mhm.
How do you decide that balance between, of course, you don't have the money in reserves, you can't use it.
Right.
So it has to be available, but you want to keep some reserves and you want to borrow. So how do you make that decision?
We try to balance off the 180 days. Okay, so at the very end of the day, I really have a heartache if I have to go in below 180. So on Suburban Water and Suburban Wastewater, we're above that. And so essentially, I could borrow and keep 300 days worth of cash, or I could borrow and keep 200 days worth of cash. So that becomes the deciding factor. Am I going to destroy any metrics doing that?
Okay.
On Suburban Wastewater, a little bit different choice here. We didn't have enough in reserves to keep it at, and I didn't want to borrow because of some unknowns out there in the wastewater land. So that one had a little bit different decision criteria than I would normally say, because the city would be the same way. If we're okay with this cash on hand, we'll use up reserves till we get too close to 180.
Do you make that decision on your own, or is it discussed internally here? Or?
Oh, no, we go through a rigorous review. Lisa and I spend lots of time talking about ratios and days cash on hand, and the team spends time on that as well. So no, I make a recommendation on what we should do, and either I get told that I'm out in left field somewhere, or that I'm on the right page. So.
Thank you.
Capital budget, this is the administration budget, and when we get into the changes, we'll talk about what's going on with admin. But in total, we had a cap plan of 1.4. That's where we're at in the budget as well. You can see some of the projects. Big ones are IT technology master plan, and you've got security upgrades, disaster recovery, and CMMS upgrades that are the big hitters in the admin side.
Good for good to go through this. I'll go through this one.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the tag team.
So this is a new slide as well you haven't seen before. We wanted to kind of start each review of each of the three funds with just a snapshot reminder of what the system is. So the Suburban Water Fund, we don't talk about it a lot because it is financially stable and, nice customer base. But it is a complex system. We have 12 different water systems. They're physically separate systems. in this service area. And it's covering 13 or so townships, mostly in Lehigh County, but we do have one small system in Northampton County and Moore Township. So one of the things that makes this unique is we have really just one large system. Our Central Lehigh division is a larger system. And then we have all of these, the rest of the systems are very small. And, but one thing we've done over time is gotten all of these small systems also with one rate. So we're blending the expenses and the revenue so that we get the benefits of economies of scale for all customers. So in the budget pack, you'll see individual system budgets broken out. Some of them are tiny, but what we really look at it as a whole. So we're presenting figures as an entire fund combined.
So, Mira, I think this is the question you're asking. If you look at suburban water, I mean, there was no changes to anything other than capital. Capital spending went down from where it was previously, and quite frankly, some of that was, I don't know what I was looking at when I was doing the admin allocation, but I got that one wrong, so. And you'll see the same effect on wastewater as well. So, but that's really all, the only changes that are coming into place since we talked last. Really haven't done anything with anything on the operating side, not even on system charges and et cetera. It's only in capital. And at the end of the day, you still have 192 days of cash on hand versus 188. So, so far, so good. This is what it looks like in total. You're gonna have a $1.6 million loss in cash flow. You can see that that's basically coming from capital being higher than what's available. So we're using up the reserves. The available is driven by $20.8 million worth of revenue with $13.8 million in expenses, further aided by almost $1 million worth of the non-operating system type revenue. So altogether, we get $7.9 million available for $3.3 million of debt service. Metrics look good. Operating ratio of 1.16. The SCR 2.36, capital coverage better than 50% because we're at 0.74, and unrestricted days cash on hand actually is 200. So the water capital budget, the cap plan was at 5.8. We are still at 5.8. After I fixed all the, well, not the admin. This one doesn't include the admin allocations, so I told you that. But $5.8 million, you can see the big hitters there, water meter replacement, Applewood pump station upgrade, North Whitehall, 700,000, pretty much the big hitters there. And annual projects of 2.5 million. This is what it looks like over time since 2016 in terms of, I'll call it revenues and also operating expenses and other cash items such as capital. And you can see the trend over a period of time is obviously revenues increasing. We've seen an increase in operating expenses. We've seen a more noteworthy increase in capital spending. So at this point in time, we're just about where we need to be.
That'd be interesting to see that adjusted for inflation.
We can do that.
Yeah, that might be fun to.
At one point in time, when I was looking at the budgets, I mean, I do have a lengthy history, so I can certainly get that pulled out for you. Just looking at now taking capital out of the picture and just looking at the operating, you can see operating expenses are kind of going up across a number of different categories, but this is an indicator that your revenues are enough to pay for your operating expenses and also pay for debt service as well, so.
So I'll go into rates for suburban water, and these bullets were from the last presentation. We're looking for 4% revenue increase to help us maintain our metrics that we're looking for, and also supporting the fact that we're using 6.3 million in rates and reserves for capital. So we've crunched the numbers, and when we do suburban water rates in particular, we rely on water rate studies that Keystone Alliance Consulting does for us every few years. The last one was done in 2022, so we might be due for one next year or maybe in 2027, depending, roughly every 5 years. Study. And essentially, the rate study helps to guide where the rate increases should go when we have to do rate increases, and also kind of the equitable distribution of costs through various customer classes. So for this year, we have a couple different parts to our rate schedule. First part is the fixed charge. This is by meter size, and the fixed charge is really beneficial in terms of providing stable, reliable revenue, not based on the weather and customer growth. So we built in a little bit more of the rate increase into the fixed charges, but you can see even at 6% on the fixed charge, the increase is pretty nominal for your average customer bill. That's offset by the fire line charge, which has no change included in this year's rate schedule. And that's, again, one of the recommendations from the rate study. And then we have volume charges, and we see a slightly lower increase on the volume charges here, but generally 3% increase in the volume charges. And then again, the public fire protection charges for the hydrants that get billed to the townships, where we're providing fire protection service. This is also based on the rate study that we had done. So fairly modest increases across most categories, but no increase on the private fire protection side. We look at this in terms of an average customer bill, and while customers in different locations use different amounts of water, for this presentation, we're just standardizing on 15,000 gallons per quarter. It might be higher or lower depending on the community, but it's a good apples to apples way to look at it. So for our suburban water division, the increase for 2026 results in a modest increase in the fixed charge. This is for an average residential customer. Modest increase in the volume charge. So quarterly bill is going up by roughly $4 or $15 per year, which is. Some customers will see higher or lower depending on how much water they use in terms of the increase, but this is the average customer bill, about 4%. Then we go into the Suburban Wastewater Fund. And again, wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of what this system is. And this is our most complicated of all of our systems. There are a variety of different services we provide, and a variety of customer bases that we serve. And one thing that we're really lacking on the suburban water system is a true retail customer base. You can see these number of customers are very small. So we have a large system, this Western Lehigh and Relief Interceptor system, along with the industrial pretreatment plant, serving a lot of area, but our ability to charge the customers is really through these wholesale agreements that we have. So it's very different from charging a customer directly. A lot of pass through cost sharing that we have to manage. And then the rest of our systems where we are providing what we call retail service are very small. So in total, a little over 2,000 customers total, that we're charging for various services. In Washington Township, we don't own that system. We're operating under a lease agreement with the township. And all the wastewater in Washington Township flows to Slatington for treatment, which we don't manage. We have a couple systems here in Upper Milford, Weisenberg, and Low Hill that are just collection systems only, and they flow into the Western Lehigh system. So we're not providing treatment service directly to these customers. And then we have these 5 small systems that are standalone systems where we're providing both the collection of wastewater as well as the treatment of wastewater. You can see that we have them kind of broken up into mini common rate districts. The collection system only common rate for collection and treatment. And then Acadia West is just sort of a different animal altogether because of the way it's structured and the way that it was constructed through a developer agreement. So they're on a special rate. So it's a lot to manage in terms of rate management and budgeting, and a pretty complicated system. We again try to, for the purposes of this budget, show it individually in the packet, but then report on it as the whole fund. So we see the total performance of suburban wastewater together.
So again, similar to suburban water, the only thing that really changed on wastewater was we've gone from $6.8 million of capital to $6.7 million. And that's reflecting some last minute changes to project spending and also reallocation of admin. Project balances are unchanged. So as you look at the operation cash balance, you went from 2.4 to 2.6. So there's an upward swing of 149,000. The total fund will have gone up from 10.1 to 10.3 rounded. And see the cash flow for the year, $4.2 million on a negative basis without borrowing. Just looking at the cash flows, you're taking $4.2 million, you're showing net available for capital of $2.5 million. So obviously that's going to put you in negative mode. We are covering debt service with $4.7 million against the $2.2 million of debt services, which is how you get to the net available for capital. Operating ratio is once again below 1. Debt service coverage ratio is okay, 2.16. So that's a good one. Capital coverage is lower than we'd like. Unrestricted days cash on hand is 54 days rounded, which is not where we want to be, but we understand without the borrowing, that's the best move for us. And we still have $7.3 million worth of invested capital just in case.
This system is one that I think is always important to stop and talk about the operating ratio, because we like to see the operating ratio over 1. And this system will almost never be over 1 and unless we change our agreements with the municipalities that we serve. And that's because the agreements, and Jen Montero is here going to talk about user charges after we're done with budget. But the method that we follow to charge the municipalities is by agreement through some very specific format, does not include depreciation. And because depreciation is included in this ratio, then we have really no way to get to 1 without a change in those agreements. We have other ways to cover capital, but the ratio is always going to be low because of that.
Capital budget, cap plan, we're at 6.3. Big hitter is if you look at the wastewater treatment plant, We're $600,000 in plant improvements, we're $2 million, with the pre-treatment plant critical upgrades. And another $400,000 in looking at, pre-treatment plant replacement. So a total of $3 million on the wastewater pre-treatment plant side. Then you get into $750,000 of I&I work, which is important in the second grouping. And $950,000 of money on the satellite systems, in addition to the $963,000 of what we would call annual project activity. So this one shows you where we're using up reserves. 2024, 25, 26, we borrowed in 2025. So we're using up reserves, at this point in time. You see the trends in, the expenses. In capital, although it's come down a bit, is you're still using up the reserves. Sort of what Lisa was just talking about, kind of tough to get everything covered simply because the agreements don't really allow it.
Get it off. I'm just hoping.
Switch. Turn up the phone, that was the best.
Turn it off.
I'm trying.
And I.
Is it off?
Yeah.
I had the volume off.
Yeah, he's taking over.
Right now. Thank you.
It's regular programming.
So anyway, this one is a challenge a little bit right now, given some of the things that are going on and some of the unknowns that we still don't have a really good feel for right now. So we'll have to keep a close eye on this one.
So getting into the revenue side, again, we're gonna be presenting the user charge report for Western Lehigh after this presentation that gets into how those rates are derived. We also had understood this year that our collector systems, those common rate sections of our customer base, haven't seen a rate increase for quite some time, and they are incurring some pretty significant expenses. So we're needing to do a little bit of catch up on rates for those systems, and that's what I'll focus on in the next couple of slides. If you recall from the prior slide, we have really two sets of common rates. We have one set of customers that receive collection service only, Upper Milford, Whitesburg, and Low Hill, and then the other set that receives treatment service. So they are on different rate schedules. Here you can see we have a fixed rate and a flow charge for these customers. And for 2026, because we haven't done a rate study in this area for quite some time, we decided to push the rate increase more into the fixed charge because it's a very low fixed charge. And we can move on to study next year if we need to do that. So for this group, we're seeing the fixed rate quarterly charge go from $21 to $24 and the flow charge remaining flat. So the rate increase is really achieved through that fixed charge increase. You can see this is again an average customer bill using 15,000 gallons per quarter. In these systems, we have customers who are on public water that have water meters. And then we have customers that are not on public water and have water meters. And then we also have customers who are on private wells, not on public water, but do not have a meter. So there's a lot of different arrangements that we have for service with these customers, but we're assuming an average 15,000 gallons of billable flow. by changing just the fixed charge in 2026. It results in $3 per quarter or $12 per year, and that's 3.4% for this customer base. For the second common rate grouping, where we have treatment systems, these incur some higher expenses because we're actually operating treatment systems and the different systems, Windy Terrace, Heidelberg Heights, Sand Spring, and Lynn Township. The fixed charge then is increasing a bit more from $21 to $30 per quarter. The flow charge is already pretty high at $9.53, so we're leaving that where it is until we can do the rate study to show what it should be moving forward. So an average customer bill, again, if the only change is in that fixed charge, it's it's $9 per quarter or $36 a year, and that's 5.5% increase for those customers. And we would expect to see these kinds of rate increases annually moving forward, so we can get a little closer to where we need to be on revenue for these systems. And then last but certainly not least is our City of Allentown division. And this appears to be the simplest system that we have. We have combined water and wastewater service that we're providing in Allentown. However, it is under the terms of a long-term lease agreement with Allentown, which is quite complicated. We also have wholesale agreements for the sale of water to surrounding communities, as well as receiving wastewater from surrounding communities for treatment. So there's quite a bit that goes into how our revenue is generated, and it's all constrained by agreements on every facet of the business. About 34,000 customer connections and 15 wholesale relationships.
So once again, no real changes to operating revenues, expenses. Debt service, all static. The only change was in capital spending. We went from 50.4 million down to 250.7, so an increase of 323,000 rounded. In terms of operating cash balance, going down the page a bit, 24.6 million was where it was. It dropped to 24.3 million. Again, the negative impact of the additional capital. Operating days cash on hand are all good at well above 180 days. We will have about $3 million worth of project reserves and $91 million worth of trustee reserves. And total fund would be about 118 million rounded compared to 108.2. So that's been the only change. And again, $16.3 million negative cash flow, which is basically using up the remainder of the 55 million that we borrowed in 2024. Just looking at the operating ratios, 1.74. So that's good. It's above 1. Debt service coverage ratio better than 1.2. Capital coverage ratio 0.57. That's better than our internal target. And unrestricted days cash on hand at almost 366 days. So you're getting net cash flow minus 16.3. You're going to borrow $5.7 million. That's going to happen in January. So we had almost $29 million cash generated really through operations for CAPEX, and that's after operating expenses and annual payments, $46.8 million worth of money available for debt service against $18.1 million in debt service. So this fund has good metrics, and we'll use up to $55 million and see where we go.
What is that non-operating revenue and expenses?
What's that?
Non-operating revenue expenses, what is that like?
Some of that is grants coming in already, ARPA grants that already exist. That's where most of that is.
Is minus expenses or not? Is that the reason you have expenses in the parentheses? Is that the reason you have the expenses in parentheses because it's minus expenses or what?
The annual payments?
You have non-operating revenue,
Yeah.
and in parentheses, you have expenses. I'm trying to see why you have revenue and expenses on the same line.
If they were expenses, they'd be bracketed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all in the same category.
Sorry, I was,
Yes.
okay.
I wasn't sure I was getting your question. Yeah, you guys, actually we'll go through it, $67.4 million worth of operating revenues. The true operating expenses are 27. Then on the non-operating side, you're gonna get a little bit of interest income, but the majority of that $8 million is grants coming in, which will be part of what gets spent in the $50.7 million down at the bottom. Okay? Capital, $2.7 million worth of annual projects. Non-CCRC stuff will be $1.2 million on the large projects and CCRC projects, you got $24.2 million, and the big hitter there is lead service line replacement, which we will be getting some borrowed money for and some grant money for. Annual water main replacements is 4.5, and then you get into the continuation of the filter upgrades. So a total on water of $28.1 million. On wastewater side, $2.1 million of annual projects. 1.7 million of non-CCRC. The CCR large projects in CCRC are almost $18 million with wet weather capacity, pump station improvements, big one at 6.3, and then source reduction I&I elimination work, $5 million is the next big hitter there. This, and again, we borrowed money in 2024, so it kind of hit dead even in 2025. We used up some more of that. We're doing the same thing in 2026. And actually, before you get into capital, capital is pretty much the driver for borrowing, further borrowing. You can see the difference between operating revenues per the agreement versus the operating expenses that are occurring each year.
So for this division, rate increases, as I mentioned, are 100% driven by agreement, with the lease agreement being the main driver for what we call our retail rates to the 44,000 properties that we serve in Allentown. So there's a couple different components that I'll go through for the rate schedules. First is what we call the lease rates, or the Schedule 3 rates. There's a specific schedule in the lease agreement called Schedule 3, where the fixed charges for various customer sizes are specified. Those increase by an index of inflation plus 2.5%. So inflation being at 3% from the prior year, our total increase in these rates are going up by 5.5%. So we have a series of water fixed charges and sewer fixed charges, quarterly or monthly, based on the meter size. And this is showing what the 2026 rates be. I'll show a comparison for in a couple of slides. This 5.5% also applies to the volumetric and flow charges. So on a per 1,000 gallon basis, the water volume charge and sewer volume charge are shown here at $5.36 roughly for water and $3.86 roughly for sewer.
The previous one.
Mhm.
When customers are billed, though, they're billed it as one charge in Allentown.
It's one bill, but they
One-
see each of these specified. I have a sample
Do
that
they have,
I'll show you.
okay,
Everything is separated so the customer can see the details of what they're being charged for.
okay,
So they'll have a water fixed charge, a sewer fixed charge, a water volume charge, a sewer flow charge, and then last but not least, we have these other rates. So for capital cost recovery, when we mentioned the CCRC, that stands for capital cost recovery charge, and city administrative order charges. I like to show this slide because it gives you the sense of the scope of the projects we've already completed or are working on in Allentown in a relatively short period of time. We've completed or have $78+ million worth of projects going or completed since 2014 or so. And you can see they're all listed here. Some of them are still underway, but that's an awful lot of projects. These are only the projects that are included in that capital cost recovery charge. So a lot more work has been done that's not included in that charge, but $78 million is an awful lot of work. There's a couple projects here that are shown with a $0 amount, and like to keep those on the list just to highlight that these are projects that are eligible for cost recovery, but the city's granted to LCA some funds through their American Rescue Plan allocation. So we get a little bit of a rate offset for our customers.
Tell us again what projects qualify for the capital cost recovery.
They are projects, generally speaking, they're projects that are over $1 million. That $1 million is indexed by inflation annually, so we're up to maybe 1.2 million, something like that. The threshold is calculated annually. And there are some restrictions related to bundling of projects together. So essentially the larger projects that an engineer has said are needed for the treatment process or, you know, the performance of the system, and which meet those cost thresholds.
So when we embark on these projects, we consult with the city of Allentown, make a decision as to the nature of the project and approve the budget of the project.
Yeah, there's a ton of collaboration that goes on with the city in terms of reviewing our 5-year master plans, reviewing our capital plans. When these projects come up, we're collaborating more deeply on these specifically because there's an approval process of, I don't know how many steps, multiple step process to make sure that the city is comfortable with our concept, our design, costs and the contractors, et cetera.
Who signs off on the city's part on these projects?
The Office of Compliance is our main liaison, Brian Chamberlain and Jennifer McKenna, who attend our meetings. They may consult with others within Public Works to kind of vet the projects, but there are 2 main people.
Thanks.
New this year to the chart are a couple projects that we've approved recently, like the plastic media filter rehab project and the wet weather improvements, and then also the lead replacement program and the inflow and infiltration program. Those 2 projects were added this year, and we've been really fortunate to have that collaboration with the city to work up a mechanism to include these complicated ongoing projects into our rate setting process. So $78 million sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money. What it trickles down to in terms of rate impact, however, is fairly manageable at this time. We have water capital cost charge of 42 cents per 1,000 gallons. Sewer is about 65 cents per 1,000 gallons. And then the administrative order, the 21 cents per 1,000 gallons, that is a fee that we're collecting on the city's behalf for expenses the city has incurred to address the sewer issues under the EPA administrative order. So a lot of components to the rate structure in Allentown, a lot of pieces to the puzzle. When we put it all together, this is the sample bill that a customer using 15,000 gallons of water per quarter would see. You can see the rates for 2025 versus 2026. So all the components that I just went through come together for a total quarterly bill of, in 2026, about almost $280 per quarter, or a little over $1,100 a year. That's a total rate impact of $74 per year, or 7.1%
Is 15,000 gallon, is that typical of a household to use water or?
We use 15,000 gallons because in our suburban areas, they might use a little more where they have, a lot more landscaping and those kinds of things. In Allentown, it's usually closer to 13,000 gallons. So, but 15,000 is a good benchmark. And when we look at the rate comparison across the valley, we just standardize on that so that we have a comparison. Sean has his hand up. Sean.
Yep, thanks. I do have some questions going back to the suburban side, but and I can ask that at the end. Did want to, I guess, for this portion, ask the annual question, which I feel like we probably, Lisa, you bring up every year, or we ask about it, but certainly for the city side, I know the LCA has some, is trying to make some headway on programs to assist those customers who, making these quarterly bills, maybe, financially out of reach. So just want to briefly, if you just touch on, in 25 and where you see this going in 2026, those types of assistance programs.
Sure. Thanks, Sean. So I don't have a slide on this for this presentation, but we do spend a fair amount of time talking about customer assistance. We have our own LCA funded customer assistance program. It's a grant program that customer with low income of a certain threshold of federal poverty level can apply for funding to help them avoid a water shutoff or address a large balance. That there are some limitations to that because LCA, we're not a social service agency. We don't have staff that can do income verifications and those sorts of things. So we're using a firm called the Dollar Energy Fund to manage that program for us. And, kind of has to fit within their role to make it work. But it's been a pretty successful program. And I can certainly gather some information on performance of that program over time.
I think that'd be great. I'd be interested to see, especially since we're, in even more difficult times, what the trending data looks like behind that. Is the approval process, maybe just highlight what that approval process looks like for folks who do apply?
For a customer that applies, they apply directly through the Dollar Energy Fund and provide their income verification information to them so they can manage it securely and handle that. We will provide some verification of what's owed on the account and what is needed to be paid in order to avoid a shutoff. And then if it fits within the thresholds of our program, then we receive a wire transfer of the funding that goes to that customer's account directly. So the customer doesn't have to be involved in getting a check and turning it over to us or anything like that. It all works electronically. Fairly smooth process. And, I'm seeing email notification of the grants. I'm seeing, a couple, 2, 3, 4 grants a week coming in through that of, $100 to $300 per grant. So it is, it's kind of a steady stream of grants being applied to customers who qualify. We did have a lot of success with the low income household water assistance program that was run through the COVID relief funds. That program came from the federal government to the states. The states administered it through their Department of Health and Human Services. And Pennsylvania was extremely successful in getting a lot of that funding to customers that needed it. Unfortunately, the funding was a one-time lump sum amount of funding, and that program has not been renewed. So we continue to watch legislation on water assistance programs. There's assistance programs for practically every other type of utility, whether it's heat, energy, food, housing, but nothing that is for water or wastewater. So we think that's a gap in the support system.
What's the total dollars then of relief that we're providing?
I don't have a figure for you per year. We funded this though in 2021 with, we actually got a one-time debt service or interest savings from a bond refinancing that we did. And we took $500,000 of that to put into that fund. And we've been using that $500,000 since 2021. But I don't know the status of it in terms of actual dollars out.
So in 5 years, we haven't, 100,000, less than $100,000 a year, probably.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
yes. We had far more success with what we call the LIWAP program. Because the state's thresholds were, they would pay off an entire bill, whether it was $300 or $4,000. They would pay the entire amount of the bill that was due if a customer was at risk for a shut off. Our program is more restricted in terms of I think our top tier grant is $300 or $400. So if someone owes more than that, then we shift them over to our customer care team and try to get them into a payment plan where they can pay monthly and avoid some penalties and pay it down over time.
And is the process through the dollar, I'm sorry to be focused on this specifically, but the Dollar Energy Fund program, is that a one-time process for a customer, or could you, once you're on it, you're on it and you have to continually verify your income qualification?
Each application is a one-time
Got
application. However, a customer could ask for funds a second time if they needed it.
Got it. Thank you.
Interesting for us as a group, how much assistance do we give to customers in the city of Allentown, just as a number?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can provide the dollars that we're giving out through our grant program, but I think the dollars that were provided through that LIWAP program are probably closer to what the actual need is, which is much greater than what we're currently providing. The LIWAP program, as I said, was a one-time fund and really alleviated customers that had high bill because you have a water leak and you get hit with a $3,000 water or sewer bill. Our grant program won't cover that, but the LIWAP program did. So it was a very, very beneficial program, and hope it comes back.
Are these grants all to individual customers, like residential? They're not to like apartment buildings or commercial?
Residential.
Just residential homeowners.
The other thing that was so great about the LIWAP program that ran through HHS was that they could use criteria that they use for other programs. So they're already administering food assistance, or they're already administering LIHEAP for energy and heat. So a customer that is getting those kinds of support, that kind of support, means that they qualify for LIWAP and it's an easier process than having our own individual program. So the other thing to mention on affordability, this is a really important topic to be like, we could talk all day about it, but I did want to mention or comment that we have kicked off a study with Reftelis on affordability in Allentown, and we have funds that are included in this budget to continue that study and expand on what we're looking at. But essentially, what we're hoping to achieve with that study is more of a robust forecast of rates based on capital expenditures that are coming down the line. And then also begin to look at rate structures that would be more beneficial for low-income households. And that will, of course, require a lot of conversation with the city of Allentown as well. But there are some rate structures that could be potentially more beneficial for low-income customers, such as, for example, these fixed charges that are shown here. Some cities have a water bill that includes a fixed charge that includes a first amount of water. So they don't have the volume charge for the first 3,000 gallons a month or something of that nature. There's different ways to do rate structures that are geared toward that. So we'll get into more detail toward the end of this year and then in the beginning of next year on that. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
One last thing on this slide to mention is what the total customer impact of $74 a year is significant. I just want to make sure that we're clear that this is a combined water and sewer bill. So some of the other rate impacts I was showing previously were for water only or for sewer only. You put them together, you know, in Allentown, they are already together into one bill. So I always show this slide to give us a sense of where our rates are in comparison to other communities in the Lehigh Valley and a couple of other areas of the state. So this was updated with data from 2025 as well as showing LCA's 2026 proposed rates. So the blue bars are essentially 1 year ahead of the green bars. So the blue bars are LCA's rates that are proposed for 2026, and the green bars are every other community's current water and sewer rates. Again, using that 5,000 gallons a month or 15,000 gallons a quarter, that's the baseline that we use so we can do apples to apples comparisons. We do see we have really two tiers of customers, I'd say. We have a group of communities here where our rates are really among the very lowest across the Lehigh Valley. And then we have some systems, including Allentown and Lynn Township and Washington Township, Heidelberg Heights, where the rates are more on the middle to higher end. And then we have other communities, these green bars. I think it's important to show we have certain communities right here in the Lehigh Valley that are paying far more than in other areas. These happen to be areas that are served by Pennsylvania American or Aqua America and some smaller communities in the Lehigh Valley. And then we also have some cities in Pennsylvania that have some pretty high rates compared to ours. So our rates are very comparable across the Lehigh Valley and competitive across the state.
Now, this graph is just water, just sewer, just combined?
It's water and sewer combined. So what a customer pays for the whole year for water and sewer service combined in these various communities. When we think about what's happening in Allentown, we see this bar is creeping toward the right-hand side of the graph. But when we look at it more holistically, this is maybe a different way of looking at it. If we take all of those bars together on this slide and say, well, what's the monthly impact to a customer? What do you pay per month for water or sewer service? We see the lowest community is paying $46 a month for water and sewer service, and the highest community is paying $151 a month for water and sewer service. Still in the overall scheme of utility bills per month, it's not your highest bill that anyone is paying, but the average is $89 and in Allentown is $93. So it's very close to the average is what the Allentown rates will be.
Yeah, so doesn't that number depend on how old the system is and all the upgrade that you have to do on the lead and iron and all that? So really one has to consider those numbers too.
Yeah, and I will say, I don't think that he would mind me sharing that this green bar right here says other Pennsylvania urban area. This information came from a colleague of mine in Pittsburgh who is very open about the costs that they've had to bear. Pittsburgh is an old system, and Pittsburgh is kind of ahead of the curve in terms of capital investment. They've already removed 11,000 lead service lines, and they've already done a ton of upgrades that we're just now getting started doing. And they've had to make hard decisions about what their rates will be. So the fact that they're on the upper end of the rate schedule across the state is difficult for those customers, but it's also a sign that they're doing the work that needs to be done.
I would just add, it's not just the older systems.
Yeah.
Today, this day and age, you build a smaller, brand new system, your bill's way up there because you're paying for all the debt service and all the costs, so
Oh,
it's
sure.
really on both ends. It's not just the older system and repairs. Like you said, there's new systems out there that are, the bills are in the $1,500 range easily.
Unfortunately, for Allentown, a chunk of their rates are, quite frankly, the financial crisis that caused LCA to take them over, i.e. the pension fund bailout for the police and the firemen there. So it's kind of Allentown's rates are kind of a mixed bag. It's not just the cost of building and maintaining the water systems. You throw that in the bag, and quite frankly, it really affects the rates.
Absolutely. When we look at one of Ed's earlier slides and saw 18 million in debt service, that's not 18 million of debt service for capital, that's 18 million for the whole
Yes.
shebang. Yeah. So that is all I have on rates and Ed's numbers. I think we went through in some detail over the last three meetings. Coming up, what we still have to complete or just any final budget changes. We gotta cross the T's, dot the I's. We'll probably issue a updated book because we had some minor, minor formatting and various things to clean up for you. After we're done with this presentation, we'll hear from Jen about the wastewater signatory rates. Customer rate change notifications are already starting. So our industrial customers have received notice. We're working on township notices. The city of Allentown, the rates that I presented are proposed. The city team are reviewing our math on it and making sure that those are correct so we can get those to you in November for approval. And then in 2 weeks, we'll ask for budget approval from this board. I would ask that we presented a lot of information today. This packet includes a lot of information as well. We've been doing this for, almost 2 months now, but if there are any final questions, concerns, suggested changes to our budget, we really need to have those from you roughly within a week so that we can incorporate that into the final packet for 27. Stop sharing now, so if there's any additional questions, Sean's got his hand up again.
Yeah, thanks. Just 2 questions going back to the suburban side. My first question, I know in the new positions you included a canvasser, I believe an I&I community canvasser, or can't recall what the exact position description was. But I feel like, was that a position that is new to this budget? I feel like we maybe talked about that last year. Could you talk a little bit about the duties of that position? And I just feel like I've seen it as a position before.
Yeah, you have actually, great memory. We included 2 community canvassers in our Allentown division last year. So those are positions that we have filled and they've been successful. So, but we don't have any staffing to support our lead program in our suburban division. So that position, additional position, is for suburban water systems.
And I'm not necessarily advocating for it, just throwing it out, but you would say that knowing how the Allentown, the personnel for Allentown have operated as canvassers, they would have no bandwidth to also do this other work as well, right? I'm assuming you're adding a new position because they're already busy with the Allentown piece of it.
They are. And Sean, the systems, again, getting to whoever made the comment about the age of the systems, our suburban water systems are really younger, a lot younger than our Allentown systems. So our canvassers in Allentown are really focused on straight up door to door, getting into homes, look at pipe material and supporting our lead replacement projects. In Allentown, it is going to be a little more focused on by appointment, getting out to, we're across 13 communities, so it's really spread out And just trying to round out our inventory of
Sure.
service line material where we don't think we have a lot of lead, but we have a lot of unknowns that we have to go after.
Fair enough. And then my other question, going back to our conversation about the individual agreements we have with the individual municipalities, can you remind me what is I don't mean to put you on the spot, but what is the youngest or the oldest of those agreements that we have in place?
Oh, gosh. Well, I will say that, so we inherited some of the agreements. They're not really our agreements, they're city agreements that that we're administering. So I think one of the oldest agreements relates to city sewer service with the borough of Emmaus. That goes back to the 1950s.
Okay.
And the whole series of intermunicipal agreements related to wastewater sort of build from the 1950s through the mid to late 1980s, I'll say. That's the age of those agreements. On the water side, we have agreements that are kind of across the board from the 1980s forward. Probably our most recent one was in 2016 when we acquired the Low Hill Township sewer system and have a service agreement with Low Hill Township about service, because they were administering or managing their own system up until that point.
And the only reason why I ask is I don't intend to kind of pull at this thread, but I guess what is and maybe you can just due to what is in the agreements, but at what point do you kind of, if it's that 1950s agreement, blow the dust off and say, okay, we want to take a look at this again, whether it's renegotiating or, reevaluating where we're at in 2025 versus 1980 or 1950.
So we need to take the agreement sort of in chunks. We can't look at an individual agreement without looking at all of the agreements that are interrelated.
That's right, yeah.
The Act 537 plan that we've talked about many, many times here for the Kleins Island sewer system, that involves agreements with 15 municipalities. And the way we do cost sharing with one community will affect our financials potentially to other communities. So we do have included in that Act 537 plan a draft term sheet for a new agreement that would replace all of those old agreements, but that will require a lot of negotiation over the next, I don't know how many years, months.
Sure.
Do these agreements have terms to them at all?
We do not.
Oh, that's great.
You inherited all.
Huh?
You inherited all.
Perpetuity is smart.
I thought the lease actually had an appendix with the list of all the Allentown agreements. Thought I just saw that somewhere.
Yeah, we have a list of all the agreements, but we also then have our own agreements for the
Right.
Western Lehigh
Right,
side
right,
of things.
yeah,
So
right.
it's a little complicated. I think there's 75 plus agreements all related to the Kleins Island sewer system. Quite a challenge. We're lucky to have Jennifer.
Any other question? No. Well, I think I just want to acknowledge the whole team, pulling this budget together. I've gone through many of them in my life. It's not an easy job, a lot of moving part, trying to minimize the cost to the end user, at the same time trying to have a safe, affordable, is not an easy task. So congratulations to the whole team for a lot of effort to bring things together. I don't want to mention name because a lot of people engaged. So the great presentation, we have gone to a 2-month of review. And I think that's been, you guys done a tremendous job. So congratulations to all the team.
Very good.
Thank you.
Next up, yes.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, I gotta set the, just for the people, I'm sorry, I got too excited about. I'm done, I forgot I wanna do my job. So next part is the user charge report is on yellow pages, digital board package, page 122 to 155.
Yes, and for this, we've mentioned her twice already, Jennifer Montero, She comes once a year to share her methodology for creating the rates that get passed on to our Western Lehigh sewer signatories. And you want to take it away?
All right, it's a lot of paper, but not a lot of words because Lisa and Ed covered mostly all the words. The operating costs and capital costs, of course, are driving, the rate increase for our wholesale signatories. This annual report is a pretty useful document for any new, people that get hired at the township so they can, make sense of these very old agreements that date from 1959 up to like the mid 80s, some maybe early 90s. So it can be a useful document, but pretty much does the same thing every year because the agreements haven't changed. So the way I figure that the rates every year is pretty much the same. The only thing that changes are the costs and the flows and the loads. So that being said, we do express the change in the rates by theoretical impact that it would have to our wholesale customers, because we don't set the rates in Upper Macungie for wastewater, Lower Macungie, et cetera. We basically just measure what these costs mean to the average residential user in those areas using 15,000 gallons per quarter. And just passing through the Allentown costs, the Western Lehigh costs, and the Little Lehigh Relief Interceptor Phase 1 and 2 costs, we would predict to see about a 6.2% increase in the cost to the typical residential user. Whether that actually happens, we don't know, because we don't set those rates, okay? The report is required under the contract, so I have to make it every year, even though it's pretty, redundant every year. The numbers change. That's just about it. And so just, to highlight the cost increases to our wholesale sales this year, it's mostly driven by Klein's Island pass-through costs, annual projects, indenture report improvements for structure and electrical upgrades, master plan improvements, the odor control unit building replacement, and that's an end of useful life project, as well as the plastic media trickling filters and clarifier rehab. There is some regional 537 cost baked into the Allentown costs in the form of the continued SRP work. Also the primary sludge improvements that are planned down at Klein's Island in anticipation of the pretreatment plant changes that will happen in the future. On the Western Lehigh end, cost increases there are also 537 driven with the SRP for Western Lehigh and sewer billing meter rehab, which is important for if we do renegotiate agreements, we would like to go to just volume-based billing. Right now, we bill based on 4 different parameters: flow, BOD loading, TSS loading, GKN loading, and also their reserve capacity. So 5 parameters actually. This has been shared with our municipal partners, and we did ask for comments. We did not get any comment, probably because we meet with them once a month and discuss all the capital projects that are being planned, and they're pretty much on board with everything that we've been discussing all year. So they just basically need to know the nitty gritty. What does this mean for my bill to you this year, and how do I pass it on to my customers? So haven't heard any feedback, which was pretty much expected. So today we're just asking for preliminary approval of these rates, and final approval will come in 2 weeks when the budget is approved. But the costs, Lisa and Ed talked in great detail about them, so I don't need to. So, thank you.
Any question? Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate the sort of great work. There's no more questions. We move to the next item.
We would like to have an approval
We have to have a-
here, yeah, so that we can say to the signatories that these are the approved rates.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm seeking approval for the rate. Yeah, so we got a rate for the whole system that we presented in the budget and what Jennifer presented here.
Just the Western Lehigh user charge report.
Okay. So we're seeking approval for Western Lehigh Interceptor user charge report.
So moved.
Thank you, Linda.
Second.
Second, okay, motion made by Linda, second by Ted. All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you again, appreciate that. Moving to the next item is the Allentown Division sanitary sewer collection system. I&I source reductions page, is it green pages, digital package 156 to 173.
All right, thanks, Lisa. Jason Peters is going to present this project. I'll just summarize it briefly. This is a 2026 project. If you were looking at the line items in Ed's presentation, you probably saw $5 million budgeted for city source reduction plan. And this is contract one of 3 contracts for implementing the city's source reduction plan, which is in accordance with the regional Act 537 plan. And this particular contract deals with about 7 miles of cured in place pipelining, internal lining, located in the Trout Creek Basin, which is generally south of Martin Luther King Boulevard. And this project is CCRC, it's capital, it's major capital, the city after the first 650,000, which is on us. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, Mayor and Board, for allowing me to present today again. To explain on what Chuck has said, I'll run through a lot of the stuff here on the paperwork that you guys already received. A little bit further background. In 2023, LCA and the City of Allentown coordinated in the preparation of the 10-year inflow and infiltration source reduction plan. The first year of construction that was under the watchful eye of LCA was completed in 2024. The city SRP, along with the I&I reduction plans developed by the other municipalities in the Kleins Island sewer system, is required part of the original Act 537 plan, which was just recently approved.
Submitted.
Submitted, sorry, but all approved by the municipalities, thanks to Phil. So that's a good thing. The total construction cost for the city's 10-year SRP program is estimated to be approximately $50 million. The goal of the work is a cost-effective reduction of I&I to reduce both the dry day and wet weather flows at the Kleins Island system. Under the terms of the lease, the city LCA is responsible for implementing the city's I&I SRP program. This program is developed on a collaborative basis with the city having final determination of the scope and annual projects. And I'll emphasize that the city reviews these, approves our scoping and our direction for these projects. We come to them with what we intend to want to do. They have the last say in regards to what is actually going to get implemented on these programs and on these actual yearly projects. Project overview, this authorization request is for the construction phase, as Chuck has mentioned, for contract number 1. For this year's project, we went out on an adventure and broke the yearly project up into 3 separate contracts to hopefully get some better accommodations for pricing, as a lot of this work is very niche and specific to the type of work they're doing. As Chuck had mentioned, CIPP lining. We also do some grouting work, so we put 3 different contracts out for bid to see if we can get some better pricing.
And those will be brought to the board for approval at the next meeting. The contracts are separated by discipline.
Yep. So on the financial side, as Chuck has made mention, under the lease agreement and amendment in 2020, LCA will provide funding for the SRP work on its Allentown Division revenues and reserves. After the first $650 is spent each year, the rest will be put onto a capital cost recovery charge. I do want to note, though, that in 2023, the city was awarded an H2O PA grant through a collaborative grant application process with LCA, with proceeds to be used for this program in order to reduce the future rate impact for city customers. We do know that SRP2 will definitely be exhausting or all of that H2O grant. So definitely a good thing for SRP 1 and 2. Project status: in May 2024, the board approved the design and bid phase engineering services for SRP year 2 work. Working closely with the city already, we obtained all the approvals for this project work and these contracts. So a good thing there. Construction phase for contract number 1, LCS, as I made mention, structured the SRP2 project into these 3 separate bid contracts, strategically staged for bid opening and authorization. This phase approach, like I had mentioned, is to hopefully foster some greater competition among bidders and secure more favorable pricing. This specific authorization pertains to the contract number 1, and contract number 1 focuses on trenchless rehabilitation of cured in place pipelining, which includes right around 36,100 lineal feet of pipeline work on 8 to 15-inch diameter sewer mains in the Trout Creek Basin. Key components of that work by the contractor is cleaning the pipes, CCTVing them for inspection of the existing sanitary sewer pipelines and laterals, disposal of the materials, and then also the full length cured in place CIPP lining. So from manhole to manhole, the whole main line will be actually CIPP lined and not spot repairs. The construction contract number 1 bidding summary. Project was advertised on August 18th. A pre-bid meeting, mandatory pre-bid meeting, was held on August 28th. Bids were opened on September 18th. 4 bidders were received. 4 bidders placed a bid, and the bidding results are on the table. These are pretty much common people that we see. There's one that stands out that's a little bit different, which was SAK, but you can see the pricing there. In situ form technologies is the apparent low bidder at 1.78 million. Do the math pretty quickly. 1.78 over 36,000 lineal feet, you're about $50 a foot. Really good pricing. Really good pricing. Our engineer's cost of opinion on the project was 2.1. So we got some pretty good bid pricing on this contract 1 pricing by breaking it out. In situ form technologies, we do have some experience with them. They actually did the WLSP year 1 contract for lateral lining project with Upper and Lower Macungie and Upper Milford. They performed really well. So LCA recommends contract 1 award to In Situ Form Technologies. Also part of this capital project authorization that we're asking the board to authorize is professional service authorization for construction phase professional services. Contract 1 through 3 to Kleinfelter. The tasks I have broken down in my board memo here. Contracts 1, 2, and 3, construction engineering. So they'll manage the engineering side of all of those contracts. Then the actual contract 1, CIPP field representative. So inspector for the actual contract 1 project. And then on the task 3, which is contracts 2 and 3, construction management side. So I'm asking for a professional authorization to Kleinfelter in the amount of $654,418. And I'm also looking for an approval for a general construction contract of $1,784,583 to In Situ Form Technologies that are all part of the capital project authorization for $2,624,000 and $1 to be used for this. No sense, sorry.
Great. Any question?
Yeah, I have two questions, actually. What are the other two contracts?
The other two contracts are mainline grouting, capital grouting program. And then a lateral grouting, again, following the capital grouting methodology for that would be contract 3. So contract 2 would be mainline grouting approach. And then contract 3 would be a lateral grouting approach.
And those bids are going to open.
Today is these contracts.
So when you're doing the lining work, obviously you're opening up a whole bunch of manholes. There'll be, any issues will be noted and they'll be taken care of at a future time if anything's identified.
That's correct. That CIPP lining couldn't handle there by lining it. Grouting, the same thing. If you get too far into it and it's not amenable to grouting, we'll be looking to then maybe shift gears, maybe do CIPP or an actual takeoff.
And the construction support, it just seems a little on the high side. It's like 30% the construction cost. Usually that number is a little lower. Is there any particular reason why?
So like I said here, in these, some of these will go further beyond. So this is contract 1, 2, and 3 for construction engineering.
Okay,
Not just solely just with the contract.
So as a percentage, Jeff, you should look at $5 million.
oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, got you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You got off your rates.
You have no idea.
Figured I was gonna get that quick. Yeah.
Well, thank you for clarifying. That made me feel much better.
No problem.
Any question? Any other question? Just a couple of questions from my end. What percentage of these I&I is come from the pipe that we have to do the CIPP versus the other, I&I factor that we have? I'm just trying to see with doing the CIPP, is that the effective 10% or is it 80%? I'm trying to see how much benefit do we get for the amount of money we spend.
CIPP versus like grouting and or.
The manhole that, we have all.
So other different types of rehabilitation, the cost evaluation, for the rewards.
Yes.
Yeah, bang for the buck. I'd like to answer that question in the upcoming years.
That's fine.
As these kind of like spin out, I mean, we did the manhole rehab project. Right now, we're in kind of an analysis review of the manhole work. SRP 1 was just completed, this past year. We restaged these in different contracts to see what kind of pricing values we get. And the return on those for the different types of the construction work. I'd be a little off to say where I think right now based upon that.
No,
Just trying to be honest.
Yeah, it's a good question, like
Yes, it is.
performance metric on these different techniques, like years later. I don't think we have enough data yet.
I mean, it's a difficult task that you don't know the CIPP, how much you prevent from the leakage, right? So, but I think it's a good thing to have because as we have to do more line to try to see, okay, if we have limited budget and so much money, so much rate increase we can pass to our customers, where can we get 90% and maybe we ignore the 10%? Just
Get the best bang for the buck.
Cost per foot.
Yeah.
I wonder how much data you need to collect to.
a lot.
prove that curve, right?
That's right.
Yeah, low metering
Yeah.
plays into that.
The second question is, so when you put out for bid, right? The type of film the guy used, the thickness of the film, the type of adhesive you use, all of those is going to determine what cost to put in there. So I'm trying to see the one is 1.7 versus 2.2. In our bid package, do we specify what film, the thickness of the films and the adhesive they use and all that, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That establishes their bid base pricing
Correct.
and bid. There is sometimes allowable approved equals, but they are bidding all of the same materials.
Okay.
And there's strict warranty requirements.
That's correct.
You ever get alternates proposed by contractors when they submit a bid? They suggest an alternate?
Sometimes they do early on, but they all have to bid on that, what's specified.
You got, it's public, yeah.
Right, you have to bid on that. After they've been awarded, then they can ask that and we can renegotiate pricing at that point.
Are these clay shorelines?
Yes.
5 foot joints?
There's 3s and 5s, these, on the, in this contract here for CIPP focused mainly on the shorter ones, so those 3-footers. Cause there's just so many more joints for a capital grouting program to handle.
So that, to your question, is the material and the makeup of the sewer line may push you toward the, the full lining versus doing all of those joints, and then with clay pipe, if there's cracks, if you're grouting, typically you're just grouting joints, you can't do the cracks, so it's more that the condition of the pipe that pushes you toward that particular repair.
But I think generally speaking, the 3-foot joints is the oldest pipe.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Short ones.
And I mean, I just want to point out too, remember, this is the infiltration piece.
Yes.
The manholes, is the separate topic for the inflow piece. So this is the public infiltration piece. So this one may.
Yeah, thanks for clarification, I appreciate that. Okay,
Questions?
okay. Seeking approval for the sanitary source collection system for INR source reduction programs for the amount of $2,624,001.
Also, I'll make the motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, so the motion made by Peter, second by Jeff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Great work. Appreciate that. Good luck. Moving to next one is Allentown Division, Kleins Island Building Renovation. Program is Blue Pages Digital Board 174 to 176.
Yes, so, okay, Anton Siegman is going to present this project, which is a master plan project to basically update employee spaces that have not been touched since buildings were built.
65.
Yeah, and bring them up to code. There's a lot of issues there. There's mold issues, there's just optimization issues, there's asset management issues. So this is driven out by our building optimization study. So with that, I'll turn it over to Anton.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, board, for allowing me to present this. So I am requesting board authorization for the Kleins Island wastewater treatment plant building upgrade project. In our capital plan from 25 to 29, that's AD-S-14. Requesting the capital plan authorization and also the design and bid stage PSA or CHA consulting. Some background to it, as Chuck said, these buildings have been identified in capital plans as needing to be addressed. For this project, we're going to be focusing on the main pump station and the dewatering buildings. The dewatering building had some repairs to the belt press floor in 2025. There was some leakage there, and some of this work in dewatering is to repair the damaged areas beneath those that were damaged, and that floor was fixed, so it's no longer going to damage the area beneath it further, but those areas haven't been addressed, and so that's what we're going to do for this project. In dewatering, it's going to have a existing locker room demoed and moved. There's a leaking sludge pipe that's going to be replaced. Some ceiling penetrations also repaired, along with new lighting, drop ceiling, and then upgrades to the control and break room areas. The dewatering building is the probably worst condition building at Klein's Island. It definitely needs to be addressed. For dewatering, it's definitely a high priority. It's a health and safety hazard for LCA staff, so that needs to be addressed. The MPS building, main pump station, is going to have, while it's not in as bad shape as dewatering, it also needs to be addressed. A lot of that is for current usage and efficiency as it's being used today, as opposed to when it was initially designed and built. In there, we're gonna have the office spaces reconfigured to suit how they're currently being used. There's bathroom drain issue that is gonna be taken care of. Floor needs to be opened up for that to be fully addressed, to see exactly what we need to do there. And using that opportunity to make other upgrades to the space. It's going to have operators control room reconfigured to put all of the SCADA monitoring on its west wall. So it's going to change the orientation of that room. It's going to have additional SCADA and security monitors. There's a kitchenette in there that's going to be moved to the break room. There's also some unused phone equipment in a closet there. We're gonna take out what we don't need, and that'll become additional storage in that operator's room. Let's see, vestibule and entrance are also gonna be updated. There's a lot of wood paneling in the whole space, so we're gonna take the opportunity to put up new drywall, new drop ceilings, LED lighting. That vestibule and entrance area is also going to get ADA wheelchair access, which does not have now. The bathrooms, when we look at the floor drain situation there, we're going to make a decision whether or not to eliminate one of the bathrooms and just have one unisex that's ADA. We may keep both, make both of them ADA accessible, or make one of them ADA accessible, make both of them unisex. There will also be a new walk-up window for visitors to check in. Full details of this are in CHA's proposal here that I also have attached. The
So actually, I don't mean to interrupt.
Sure.
I didn't see that on my copy. It's. Oh,
The CHA
Yeah.
proposal is not in there?
No.
Okay, I can provide that
That's okay.
if you want.
That's okay. You explained it enough details.
This is funded by LCA's Allentown division. The status of it is we just got a proposal from CHA back in actually June, but we had a building optimization study being conducted, and we wanted to wait for those results before moving forward with their proposal. We got the optimization study, and so it did not change how we were going to address it from what we got from CHA. So we're going to move forward with the design process with them. Assuming that it is approved at today's 10/13 meeting, design should be complete in March of 2026. We plan to then, if we get a notice to proceed around June 2026, substantial completion for the construction of the project should be Q2 2027. The tasks in this proposal would be a conceptual design, 60% design, 90%, and then bid ready documents at that point, and bid management. Future authorizations would be additional LCA staff time, construction phase with 4 prime contracts being general, electric, HVAC, and plumbing, and construction management services at that point. The dollar amounts for this authorization, $157,000 $600 for CHA's design and bid, $20,000 contingency, and $10,000 LCA staff.
Any questions?
Anton, how long you been with LCA?
5 months. Yesterday was 5 months.
Where you from?
Locally, Berks County. Yeah, I live in the Bethel'sville area. I grew up Fleetwood area, so sticking around.
Good.
Thank you.
Seeking approval for the Allentown Division Klein Island wastewater treatment plant building renovation, the amount of $187,000 and $600.
I'll make that motion, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Second. Motion by Sean, second by Linda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You oppose? Thank you. We will have a shiny building by next year, huh? Thank you. Next is the October report for projects, monthly project updates.
Yes, so this is the monthly project update report attached to your packet. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Next meeting, we have budget approval. We also will have capital plan final approval at the next meeting, as well as a project or two that are as outlined in the report. Wanted to highlight on the part 2 of the report, the project updates, that the first item in that section of the report is a critical update and celebratory moment for us, in that the Pines Island Sewer System Act 537 plan has been submitted to DEP as of last Tuesday. Right.
Have it in their hands.
We've been presenting on this for the past 5 years or so, and
You have nothing to do now.
I'll see you.
I have a feeling there'll be other things that will be quite busy. There are a couple of items on the open project list that will come off next time. I just wanted to highlight those. The pump station, Park Pump Station Phase 2, the generator project at Park Pump Station, done. We have to take that off the list finally. So that's a good one, along with the Lynn Township Clarifier project and the Spring Creek pump station upgrades. Those 3 projects are complete and will come off the list next month.
Quick question. Did Phil, did DEP give you any idea when you might get a comment letter?
Yeah, based on last time, 6 months. So April.
Okay.
So I'm guessing March, April.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I have on that.
That's what, okay. So the staff comment, I think.
Staff comments. Well, the one comment I wanted to make, we already made about 537, just to give a little congratulatory comment to Phil and really the whole team and the board for the support for that 537 project. Also wanted to give Ed Klein a moment to share the news about the bond consent, and he's commented about Penvest a couple of times today, but Ed, go ahead and share your good news.
So if you remember back in the early part of this year, we came to the board with a request to spend about 2.1 million or $2.2 million amongst a group of different consultants, including Goldman Sachs, to obtain bond holder consent to be able to do business with Penvest on a regular basis and not have them come back and say we need to change terms on a specific basis. So we kind of wrapped up the whole bond consent process, at least the biggest part of it and the best part of it, last week. No, it was week before. No, last week. And yeah, I thought I lost track of time with that whole project. So we needed to get 52%. We ended up with 65%. So effectively, we can now say we have the consent necessary to affect the changes to the supplemental indenture. And that will allow us to invoke the grants in combination grant loans with Pemvest from this day forward.
Is that money there available that we can get it?
The money that was promised to us on the one funding offer has been held open and will now be scheduled for January, which is why I said, we needed to borrow $5.7 million because that is the amount.
That's great.
But the nice thing is it will allow us to do business from the city division on a future basis with Pemvest as we continue to get the lead out.
How many bondholders do you have to go to? How many institutions?
Oh, my gosh. If I remember right, I remember maybe in the neighborhood of 138, somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, you're not gonna go to everyone. You're gonna
No,
go to
no.
the biggest holders. They went to them on a preliminary basis to see what the initial reaction was, and quite frankly, they didn't react negatively at all. I mean, they all seemed like it was a good deal for us to do this. I can say
What
that
were some of them like, for instance? I mean,
BlackRock is one that comes to mind.
Nuveen, right?
What was the other one?
Nuveen.
Nuveen, yeah,
Large funds.
large,
yes, oh, really large.
all fun.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting part of the whole process was we had been forewarned that the process of getting all of the votes in was gonna be a slow, tedious, and somewhat unnerving process. It was unnerving to me because Friday morning when we started we were at 42%. And we got 65% sometime during the day, and I was drinking lots of water. Because it was right till the last minute. I mean, the reality is we were forewarned about that and it played out that way. But the good news is we now have a vehicle in place to do it the way we want to do it. So.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Very good. What is the comment?
Thank you.
Any public comment?
No comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Any board moments, a member comment? I want to echo again for the two great achievements. One is the Act 537 plan submissions, and the other one, the bondholder consent that we have received. So these were, I know we were working on it for a long time, and has a lot of material value for the LCA. So congratulations for the team for this great achievement. If there is no other things, so have a great afternoon. The sun is now shining, so but we're all the day. Have a great week, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Just mention another call, but